Preparing. The week before my first real appointment, Constance had me practice. Not the intimate parts. She was clear that couldn't be rehearsed and shouldn't be. But everything around it. How to hold a wine glass. How to order without glancing at the menu twice. How to compliment a woman on something specific rather than generic, because generic flattery insulted intelligent people, and most of her clients were nothing if not intelligent. "You're nervous," she observed the night before. "Wouldn't you be?" "I'd be nervous if you weren't," she said. "Confidence without nerves underneath it is usually a sign of a fool who doesn't understand the stakes. You understand the stakes. That's why you'll be good at this." "Walk me through the first client," Walter said. Not unkind, just methodical, the way he approached everything. I thought about how much to give him. Decided on enough truth to matter. Not so much that it stopped being mine. She was maybe 50. A widow with more money than she knew what to do with, and a loneliness so deep, it sat behind her eyes like something permanent. Constance had prepared me for her specifically, told me her late husband had died 3 years back, that she'd had 2 other companions before me that hadn't worked out, that she needed patience more than performance. We had dinner first. Constance's rule, always dinner first, always conversation before anything else. Because the conversation was the actual product, and everything after was just an extension of it. She talked for 2 hours about her late husband, about a daughter who didn't call enough, about a life that looked perfect from the outside and felt hollow from where she was sitting inside it. "You're very easy to talk to," she told me, partway through dinner, something like surprise in her voice. The others weren't. They just waited for me to finish so they could move things along. "I'm not in a hurry," I told her, and meant it. I listened. Really listened. The way Vivian had taught me listening could be its own kind of gift. And somewhere in that dinner, I understood something that would become the foundation of everything I did after. My value wasn't really about how I looked or what happened later in the evening. It was that people left feeling like somebody had finally seen them clearly, without judgment, without an agenda, if only for a few hours. "That's why my name traveled the way it did," I told the detectives. Not because I was the best-looking man in Manhattan, though I did all right. A small, tired smile. "It's because people left my company feeling understood. That's rarer than you'd think, in circles where everybody's got something to sell you." Danny wasn't satisfied. "You're describing this like it was therapy, like you were doing charity work." "I'm describing it honestly," I said, an edge creeping back into my voice. "I ain't gonna sit here and pretend it was some noble calling, detective, because it wasn't. I got paid, and paid well, for something that plenty of people would judge me for without ever understanding the full shape of it. But I also ain't gonna let you flatten it down to something ugly and simple, just because ugly and simple is easier for you to write up in a report. It was complicated. Most of the real things in a man's life are." Walter held up a hand before Danny could push further. "Let him finish." The reputation spread the way Vivian had told me it would. Not through advertisement, not through anything public, just one whispered exchange at a time in rooms I'd never have set foot in a few years earlier. "Do you know someone discreet?" "I know someone." "What's his name?" "Domino." Nothing more ever needed saying. That was the whole transaction. And somehow it was enough to open doors into penthouses, private clubs, hotel suites that cost more per night than my mother made in a month. I moved between 2 entire worlds now. There was Demetrius, who still went home some Sundays to eat his mother's cooking and sit on the stoop with Alvarez's nephew talking about nothing important. And there was Domino, who wore suits that fit like they'd been built around him and walked into rooms full of the kind of wealth Harlem didn't have a name for. For a long while, I kept them separate clean as a knife's edge. I didn't yet understand how much that would cost me to keep doing, or how slowly a man can lose track of which name actually belongs to him. "When did that start to blur?" Walter asked. "The 2 of you, Demetrius and Domino." I thought about that question longer than any other he'd asked me all night. "There's a moment," I said finally. "I'll tell you about it when we get there. It ain't much to look at from the outside. Just a half-second slip of the tongue in an ordinary conversation. But looking back, That's the moment I understood the name had stopped being a costume and started being who I actually was becoming. I paused. We'll get there, detective. I promise you that. Just let me get there in the order it actually happened. It matters, the order. Walter nodded, slow, and wrote something down.